Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 324 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here. Also realizing my voice is very husky. This is the first time I've spoken this morning, trying to get this recorded before my daughters wake up. And I've had a crazy few weeks, a very, very busy few weeks. I apologize for not getting an episode out last week. I just couldn't do it. I was finishing the edits of the book, and so I had to get that done. I was also in New York, ran the New York Marathon as a guide last Sunday, and just had so many things in between that it was 3 events in New York and other things. It just was not possible. So I do apologize, but I also understand. I know that you will understand, and I know that you will appreciate me and respect me for doing what was best for me rather than cramming something in for the sake of cramming something in. That said, today I am excited that we are back on track, and I am excited to welcome Canyon Woodward to the show. Now, Canyon is a prominent trail runner that you may have come across if you are an ultra and trail athlete. He was running in the elite field this year at the 2022 UTMB, and he's also known as being Chloe Maxmin's campaign manager. Now, when he helped Chloe to win, you're going to actually hear a lot about that story. I don't want to share too much about it now, but you're going to hear how he helped Chloe to do something pretty historic and incredible. Now, no matter how you are feeling on this Friday with what is going on, I'm talking primarily about the US here, but I think there's a similar energy going on all around the world. So even if this is if you are not in the US, please continue listening. This will apply to you as well, and may just inspire you to do something big. We'll see. All right, so without any further ado, we'll thank one of our sponsors and go right to this episode with Canyon Woodward. Hi friends, just want to take a moment to let you know about what we are doing at Patreon. We are making something new, something exciting. We're building community for you. The one thing that I wanted to do initially with these together runs was that I wanted us to build a sense of community. I made them because we felt so disconnected. We had our phones, but all we were seeing was perfection. All we were seeing was parts of people's lives that just seemed so good, and I wanted to find a way where we could feel like we were really there together. So even though we can't run with each other in person, we can't often meet up, this is a way to bring us together. And that was the main reason of why I created Together Runs, which goes with the original theme of Running for Real, which was to not have people feel alone. So that is why I created these. And I'm continuing to create these, keeping the original parts of the nature check-in, the body scan, the senses check-in, the how are you really, and the conversational piece. But I'm excited to tell you that now we are stepping them up. And over on Patreon, you can go join me for some travel together runs. So we are going to go to Chicago, to San Francisco, to Lake Tahoe, to New York, and we are going to go explore those areas together. It's really going to feel like you are with me exploring. We're keeping those core elements, but we're making something exciting. That is one level. If you want to step up to the next level, there will be live Q&As with you and I. You will have the opportunity to ask upcoming guests, your question, and plenty of time to think of those questions, including a big guest we have coming up very soon. There will also be additional benefits that you can go find out over there, including how to get yourself a training plan that can change your life. It doesn't require certain paces. It doesn't require you to be a certain fitness. It isn't a training plan that's a one and done. This can be used over and over and over again because it's all effort-based, and it is all based on where you are at now. That is one place you can go get that. You can join in with our community. We can talk about the answers to the questions in those together runs. And I really am loving seeing those of you over there. So head on over to patreon.com/runningforreal. That's patreon.com/running4real with the number 4. That's running for real with the number 4. There's also links all over the show notes wherever you are listening to this. So come join us on Patreon. It is something really exciting. Especially if you are feeling disconnected, especially if you are feeling lonely, this is the place to go. I can't wait to see you there. Canyon, I am so excited. You and I have so much to talk about. Welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I'm excited you're here.
Me too. Thank you so much, Tina.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And I mentioned this to you before, but I do want to let the listeners know that we are recording this on Tuesday, November 8th. Now, this is obviously a big day for the US. You're a US citizen. I live in the US. And so I'm well aware with the day that this is coming out, the tone of when you're listening to this could be one way or the other. We don't know what that is yet. So keep in mind, listeners, that we don't know we don't know where we're at on Friday. We're going to talk about running. We're going to talk about, I loved reading some of the things you have written, Kenyon, about running, and even about how it connects into other parts of your life, which we'll go into. And so I want to begin with that. I'm always confused how to ask about this. You had on your website about the backwards of southern Appalachia and the North Cascades. Tell me what that means, because I see things like that written. Is that like a part of the Appalachian Trails, or like explain what that means for someone who doesn't live in anywhere close to the Appalachian Mountains?
Yeah. So the Appalachians run pretty much all down the East Coast and on the very western tip of North Carolina. So towards the south end of the mountain range. Was born in my family's claw-foot bathtub and blizzard of 93 there. And
the blizzard of 93, is that a famous blizzard?
Yeah.
As I was in the UK, that's a famous blizzard.
Yeah, at least in this area. We don't often get dumped with snow, and we got several feet, which is super rare.
You were born during that. Nice. Wanted to enter in put your mum through a tough moment on a tough day, huh?
Yeah. And then we spent about 5 years living in the North Cascades of Washington State. We moved out there and then moved back to North Carolina. Okay.
And so, both of those situations, you are surrounded by woods, surrounded by nature, surrounded by trails. You are a trail runner. You have been a trail runner for a long time and just enjoyed being out in the outdoors. But I would love to hear, growing up in being surrounded by nature in that way, being in that rural part of America. Tell us a little bit about why that situation led to your connection with nature, your connection to the land, and what that meant for you and your siblings, because you have 3 siblings. Is that correct?
Yeah, three immediate ones. Rivers, Forest, and Autumn are their names.
Amazing.
So you could guess there was an outdoor bent from the moment I popped out in that bathtub, and we had a lot of freedom growing up to just be outside, building forts, or riding our bikes to school. We were mostly homeschooled, but when we lived in the North Cascades, we were in this tiny little community of like 120 that you could only get to by a 3-hour boat ride up a lake. There was no road access, and there's a little one-room schoolhouse, K through 8th grade, one of the rare ones that still exists in the lower 48. And we'd ride our bikes to school and just have total freedom to roam, be outside, making trails in the woods, and paddling the rivers, and doing raft trips, mountain biking. Just grew up eaten up the outdoors. Some of it certainly against my will, getting dragged on many a hike that I didn't want to go on.
Let's pause on that. Let's pause on that for a second. Because I think so often, I mean, I am a very like outdoors, nature loving person as well, even though I do live in a city. I mean, technically in a city. And I think I kind of thought that if I loved nature and I got my kids to love nature, which they do, that it would be, they just always want to be outside. And you hear of people like what you just said, I was always outside. And so I think for me as a parent, I always thought, what am I doing wrong? Like, why do I have to drag my kids on a walk sometimes? So tell me, so I am normal then, that my kids sometimes don't want to go. Okay.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have not been in the position of being the parent yet, but I think, from the kid's perspective, I look back on a childhood spent largely outdoors with the family, and just like I'm so grateful for it, and it's a core part of my identity and who I am and what I'm interested in now. But at the time, it was to get me out there is a lot of licorice bars and coaxing through treats or what have you.
Okay. I actually feel a lot of relief hearing that. And I very similarly, I remember one of my aunts taking me on walks that felt like they went on for days and being like, I hate walking. Now I'm like so thankful that she did that. And I really think that was a big part of why I like being outdoors and maybe even running. But
totally.
Okay,
it's kind of
good to hear.
That type 2 stuff that's pretty core to all of us runners. It's like, you don't, definitely not enjoying every moment of it, but
yes.
But
so true. So then have you ever lived in a city or have you ever lived somewhere more urban?
Let's see. I guess college was
Harvard. Okay. So did you struggle at all being there, having been in a place your whole life and still in a place where you walk outside and there's nature all around you, to being in a place that is very maybe cold or buildings? Like, tell us about how you handled that, having been in nature your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time. I think I was ready for it. I just really thrived on the social life of it, and it's just like diving headfirst into college. And I don't think I really thought about it too much at the time. It was definitely like, oh wow, it's loud all the time. That's interesting. And the sidewalks get icy and stink for running. And so running definitely took a back seat all through college for me. But there were slices to be found, the Charles River and a little dirt path going along that was beautiful. And I think I'm definitely, I don't see myself in the city long term.
Did you find yourself craving it towards the end of college, like when you were thinking about what to do next?
No, not really. It didn't factor in too much, I don't think. I got good doses of summers going back and raft guiding and being immersed in it. So
okay. I'd always just wondered that, like, because I can imagine it'd be quite overwhelming. But if you said that you were ready for that, and it was great to explore, and you did say running took a back seat during that time, which happens for many people who have that outdoor love and kind of, especially as you said, you were ready for this and you came from a family where you were home a lot and you were with your family a lot. Like, you got to kind of, I guess, spread your wings and fly around a bit. But tell us about how running came back into the picture and how you've always used it for grounding yourself, even if during college it was of lesser priority for you.
Yeah. Let's see. So I graduated in 2015, and I would say 2016 was when I really started to dive back deep into running with my older brother, Forrest. He was working on a film at the time with one of our mutual friends, Sanjay, at 3100 Run and Become, which followed the story of a bunch of amazing long distance running communities. So got to go out and shoot with them some Navajo Nation, and just started getting back into running with Forrest at that time. And we ended up training for a 100-miler together and running our first 100 together. And
which one?
It was the C&O Canal 100 outside DC, all flat.
So wait. So at that point, you hadn't done a marathon?
No.
You jumped straight to 100 miles?
I'd done a couple of 50Ks.
Still, that's quite the jump. Okay. So how did that, why 100 miles? Like, why jump all the way over there rather than working your way up?
Gosh, just too much time on our hands, really.
Well, that's an honest answer.
I had a book on ultra running that had some training plans in it, and
you're like, well, I suppose I better try this out myself before I put it out to the world.
Yeah, we actually we just kind of like grabbed the meatiest training plan. Was like, let's just commit to one of these, and so dove into the training plan for a 100-miler. I hadn't actually decided to do 100, but once we were well in it, we were like, well, we might as well just run 100 at the end of this. But it really was it really was more about just like the training and having something to structure that.
So what did you learn during that time then? Because that's quite, you said about time, but that's still quite that must have been quite a learning and growing experience doing those hours. I mean, I know you don't run that far during the training as you do on the day, but to get ready for that.
Yeah. It was.
What did you learn about yourself during that time?
I mean, for me, I think running in that time became something that I just like knew I was going to do. I committed to the plan. And so I got out of the stage of kind of the everyday, like, will I, won't I, how many miles will I do? And I just like committed to what was on the training plan. And that was a huge breakthrough for me of just like, I know I'm going to do it. I don't have to, use the mental energy of thinking about it and the different options every day. And then I think from that kind of followed the like, yeah, sometimes it's really type 2 fun. Like there's days I really don't want to do it, but I know I'm just going to get out there and I feel so good just like physically and mentally and spiritually when I'm in that kind of committed practice of running every day. And I really haven't looked back since. I've kind of stayed in the groove of that being a really core practice for me. And it's been a huge positive part of my life of just like keeping my cup full, even amongst, the organizing work that I do that can take so much and there can be such a burnout culture in that. And I think running has been really key for staying energized and staying in it for other parts of my life.
Yes, I absolutely think that is true. And I want to dig into a little bit about, you said about spending that time in Navajo Nation while Forrest was working with Sanjay making the movie. You tell us about how your maybe perspective on running changed in terms of your connection with the land during that time, with the sacred nature that Navajo running, the deep connection that Navajo runners have with the land and with, Mother Earth, Father Sky. Like, we've had Sanjay on the podcast to talk about this, and I've also done an episode with Sean Martin. But I would love to hear about for you how that affected you, and not only running, but the way you viewed the world.
Yeah, so I got to film or I got to join for that shoot out there in 2016, and then also got to go back for a prayer run that our friend Dustin Martin organized, and that was a really powerful experience. Both of those were just the ritual around it, gathering up and being in community each morning, burning sage and doing a blessing. And then, like you said, just being so it was all about the land and healing the land, connecting with the land, and being deeply present with each other. And yeah, I think I took a lot back home with me from that. I got to spend a lot of chunks of the past like 3 or 4 winters back home where I grew up in North Carolina, and I've gotten to spend so much time just exploring these old networks of old logging roads throughout the mountains every winter, because it's technically a tropical rainforest, and in the summer where everything's totally overgrown, and then in winter it totally changes. There's not much snow on the ground, but so it's good for running, but all of the undergrowth is gone, and I feel like my sense of place for where I grew up has deepened so much, just getting to go out on foot and, go 10, 15, 20 miles overland from the place I was born in every direction through these mountains. It's just like, yeah, I feel so much more deeply connected to where I grew up.
What about, we live in a world where we're dictated, consumed, obsessed with our phones and with technology. And especially with the work that you do, it could be very easy to always have your phone with you. And how do you balance getting out there, exploring, being around, being present in where you are, and also being able to put all that aside? Because it's very easy, at least I find it very easy, to take my phone and want to maybe share what I'm seeing or what I'm experiencing with the world. But then how much does that then bring that technology into what is a sacred time for us as runners when we are out there in the woods and the trails? And you're now bringing the technology in to get a picture or a video or something, but it's still taking away from that experience. How do you keep that connection?
That's a good question. I don't think I'm the person to ask. It's got me good. Yeah, I really chafe at the hold that.
Do you take your phone with you on runs?
Yeah, I would say most of the time I do. And trail running is nice for not having the chance to take it out and look at it. If I'm on a road, I'll totally be guilty of pulling out that phone, maybe responding to some emails that I think about.
You respond to emails while you run? Canyon, that is disappointing. Oh, dear.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong person. No, but it's awful. It just has such a grip. I'm really lucky right now to where I live. I don't have cell phone service or internet connection. It's just like maybe a 2-minute, 3-minute walk up the hill to get into enough service to, make calls or send emails. But just that like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, the intention that it takes to be like, okay, I'm going to walk up this hill to engage with my phone, as opposed to it just tugging in our pockets with a vibration or a notification. It's been really huge and something that I've been grateful for.
Yeah, I guess that's good having that little barrier there.
It really is. I have no self-control otherwise. It's so hard.
Yeah, I mean, we all feel it. It is it's one of those things where you go to, at least for me sometimes when I've been doing things, when I've had a particularly like sucked in day, and I'll go to bed and I was like, oh, that was such a waste of my time.
Yeah.
I'm going to regret that. And I'm like, tomorrow I will start again. And then tomorrow you're like, oh, I'll just look at this for a minute, or I'll just respond to this for a minute. Yeah, it's bad. I wanna kind of go into a bit more of some of the other parts of your life, some of the bits we've been alluding to here. First, I want to begin by just quickly going over. You ran UTMB. I also recently discovered your coach is also a mutual friend, who is a mutual friend of everyone, David Roche. So tell us was that the first time you ran UTMB?
Yeah.
So tell us about that experience having. I mean, in the trail and ultra world, that's just it's like kind of like the Olympics, right? It's the biggest one. So what was your experience being there and just getting to be out there with many of the best in the world?
Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, UTMB is definitely something that has been on my radar since I started trail running, as it is for so many. And, I started working with David a little less than 2 years ago, and I could not have imagined, that I'd be lining up in the elite field at UTMB like a year and a half later. So huge credit to him for really taking my running to another level. And yeah, just getting to go over to Europe. I'd never been to that part of the world and in the mountains there. It was so cool. I'm part of a running team called the Green Racing Project that allowed for me to get over there with the travel and lodging and stuff. And we got to spend a couple of weeks over there. Forrest came and crewed me, and it was just, it was really special. The atmosphere is crazy. It's like the Tour de France or something, people are just lining the streets of these little villages for hours and hours and hours. It's really cool. And the terrain is just absolutely breathtaking.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the Green Racing Project there. Tell us a little bit about, I know, but why is it called the Green Racing Project? And tell us a bit about the group.
Yeah, it was started maybe around a decade or so ago by a student at Middlebury, along with Bill McKibben, who's a phenomenal activist and writer.
I didn't know he started it. Is he a runner?
He's a real good skier.
Skier. Okay.
And it started originally as a program for skiers, biathlon, rowers to kind of fill a post-collegiate gap in support there. And so they've got they've sent a lot of folks to the Olympics and in those sports, and everyone lives on campus there in Vermont at the Craftsbury Outdoor Center for those teams. And the mission is very much around sustainability and, environmental ethics and being stewards of the land and the communities that you're in, which the Outdoor Center really embodies, and the athletes are expected to embody in whatever way makes sense to them in their communities. The running team just started about 2 years ago, and we've got a number of trail runners as well as shorter distance and road runners, and take new folks on every spring, and they support with travel and lodging and whatnot for races and stuff like that.
Thank you to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, you've heard me talking about Athletic Greens for years now. It allows you to say goodbye to piles of pills and countless powders. One daily serving of AG1 delivers this potent blend of 9 health products, a multivitamin, minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, and more. It's the comprehensive foundational nutrition you need with the convenience for your life demands. Now, that applies to me in a way I cannot even describe. With 2 young kids, I know I should be getting 27 different fruits and vegetables in a day, but honestly, some days I'm lucky if I can get 1 or 2 at dinner. And it is difficult for me to take care of myself with just this hectic life that I live. So while I want to make these green juices every morning, with a juicer machine with the kale and the ginger and the lemon and all those other things. I just don't have the time for it. I can barely get to stuff something down my throat to eat. And I love that I can wake up before the girls wake up, drink down my 1 scoop of athletic greens with ice cold water, drink it down, know that I've got 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients to start my day, so that even if that day ends up being hectic and running around all over the place, I know I've got that in. It tastes good. It's almost a slight pineapple-y taste. I love drinking it before I run. I drink it and go immediately out the door. It's going to help with your gut health. It's going to support your immunity. It's going to boost your energy and help with recovery. What more can you ask for with 1 scoop? So you can go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. You will get 5 free travel packs and a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. Now, as we head into the winter months, that is when we need that vitamin D, and it works well with the K3 as well to absorb better. We need those to protect us from all the nasty sicknesses that are coming around. So be sure to go to athleticgreens.com/Tina to go check out my special offer and stop stressing about not getting those fruits and vegetables in. This is going to take care of you. It's really cool. I wish the running piece of it had been around when I was finishing college over here, and that would have been like perfect for me. But I'm excited for now for the people coming through. Just the fact that it exists, that's such a good sign.
Yeah.
So I want to talk into to your work with Chloe now. So you were the campaign manager. Do you say are? I guess you kind of are, right?
She's not. Okay. She didn't run for re-election this year.
Okay. So we're campaign manager for Chloe Maxmin, and I want you to talk about that yourself. Again, I want to remind everyone that we don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday or today. So this could be, there's many ways you could take this, but I want to stay a bit more general. So you have said, and it's been quoted many times, about how politics and trail running require going through seasons, day in, day out, and continuing when things get difficult, like having to slog through to get to the other side. I'd love for you to expand on that. Tell us a bit about, why you see it that way. And because I think that's a perspective that maybe most wouldn't think about.
Thanks for that question. Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, we're recording right now on election day. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think that goes into the point that it's not, it's never about a single election cycle or about a single race. If that's your mindset towards running, or if that's your mindset towards organizing for the world that you want to live in, you're going to be really disappointed and out of the game really fast. It's we have to look at it as this long distance run over many election cycles and training cycles, and that's just the reality of how political change and social change happens here. And we're going to take steps back and we're going to take steps forward, unless we can process the defeats and use them as motivation to get back on the horse, we're not going to be able to be as effective as we could be. So I was lucky to get into this work through climate organizing. The Keystone XL pipeline fight was really heating up when I got to college and got to do a little bit of organizing around that, and then became best friends with Chloe Maxmin, who you mentioned. She started a campaign at Harvard to get them to take their $40 billion endowment out of fossil fuel companies, which Bill McKibben also was real involved with. And we co-coordinated that together, built a huge movement. Really, that was where our education came from at Harvard, was organizing, shutting down the president's office, and building this 70,000 person movement to pressure the university to act on climate. And I graduated in 2015, got to work on Bernie's campaign, and both Chloe and I come from super small towns. She grew up in rural Maine, and she decided to move back there the day she graduated, loaded up her dad's pickup truck and moved back to Maine. And in 2018, at 25 years old, she decided to run for state house there. And I went up and was her campaign manager.
And because I want to go deeper into what happened from there, what happened in 2018, and then, you can continue the story from there.
Yeah, so her district had a 16-point Republican advantage. And it was kind of just a question that was on our minds throughout the climate organizing of like, can we win in rural America? We weren't passing the climate legislation that we needed to confront the enormity of the climate crisis, and realized that was because of electoral politics, and specifically largely because of rural America shifting in a big way such that we're just not competing on even footing. And it's really, really hard to get and sustain the majorities that we need to pass bold climate legislation. We went from, in 2009, having an even partisan lean amongst rural voters to a 16-point gap by the time we graduated from college, which is just a huge lurch to the right in rural America. And we lost almost 1,000 seats in state legislatures over that time, which was the biggest net loss of any party since the World War II era. So as two young people who grew up in rural America and were part of this growing climate movement, it was like, what do we do about this? Is there any way to be successful and push back against the narrative that, Democrats have no chance or have to be a Joe Manchin type figure in order to be competitive in rural America? And so, Chloe won, and it was really gratifying to see this 25-year-old leftist climate activist could win in a plus 16 Republican district. And in 2020, she went on to unseat the Republican Senate Minority Leader, the highest ranking Republican in Maine, and became the youngest woman state senator that Maine's ever had. Yeah.
And so I think we're definitely going to talk about Rural Runner, the movie that I will put a link to in the show notes that your brother Forrest made. And so I encourage people to go watch that, to watch this full story, because obviously this is something, there's a reason that, I definitely, as you know, listeners, Canyon and I have a lot in common here, but I wanted to use this as a sense of hope, but also as a sense of community and connection, because again, we don't know, but I suspect that this is going to be more of a fracture in our society by the time you are listening to this. So what was it that really did it for Chloe? Like, how did you and Chloe pull this off?
It was totally about grassroots organizing and taking the lessons and the skills that we learned through the fossil fuel divestment campaign and seeing how we could apply them to an electoral politics setting. And so much of that was rooted in community and relationships and building a huge volunteer-driven campaign to go door to door and listen to people and have conversations.
Can I just pause you? When you say listen to people there's something important there that I think we should just push a little bit further into. Listen to people. How is that different to what maybe current politicians, or when we as just random people try and change the mind of someone we know? What are you talking about here?
Yeah. Thank you for pausing there, because that's really, really key. A lot of campaigns and, just people in general, we come in with an agenda and a point of view that we want to get across. In the campaign world, what that looks like oftentimes is arming volunteers with their clipboards with a pre-printed out script that we send them out to the doors and ask them to just like read off of the script at people, which I can't believe that we're still doing it, but it's super prevalent, where you're just trying to get as much of, kind of this candidate's agenda read off to the person at the door as you can before they're like, please leave me alone. And our approach was, no script, just going in and trying to have an authentic human connection and see what was on their minds and engage with that and, stay in the conversation, especially being in such a conservative rural district, like being willing to hear points of view that you disagreed with, in some cases, just like really, really strongly disagreed with, and to stay in it with that person, to have empathy for where they're coming from. And we found that was a really effective approach.
Thank you. So then I think that's an important time to mention that you went in there with curiosity to learn about what their concerns were, what their thoughts were, which is what we actually hear about often in the political world of like rural America. Feels like it has been forgotten about. And while this is primarily, we're speaking about the US, this does also apply worldwide, because there's a very similar thing going on in countries all around the world. And so not going in with a sense of like, I'm waiting for you to finish talking so I can then tell you why you're wrong, but literally listening to people. And from what I learned, Chloe then took a lot of those questions and concerns and turned them into action when she did have her role as a senator. So firstly, I think I want to ask about the fact that I guess first we'll start with why you think that method was so effective in actually people feeling like they were heard enough to where they would change their vote. And I'd imagine for a lot of those people, they've been voting Republican for a long time. So what was it about that you think helped them to feel heard enough to take that big step?
Yeah. I mean, the good news is for a lot of these folks, they haven't been voting Republican for that long. Again, back to that stat in 2009, the partisan split was dead even in rural America. So, I was surprised to find that actually researching for our book, because I had the same feeling of like rural America's been voting really, really red for a long time. And that's a little bit truer at the presidential level, but yeah, so there's not quite as deep of roots of, that we couldn't break past that with that kind of door-to-door campaign. And I think what's really key there is just that simple act of showing up and listening and connecting and showing that you care. There's unfortunately been a really prevalent narrative that's taken hold over the past decade or so that, rural Americans are dumb and ignorant and will just vote against their own interests no matter what. And it's incredibly condescending and counterproductive. And quite frankly, it just makes those communities want nothing to do with, kind of the elite liberal establishment that has this this narrative. And within the Democratic Party as well, there's been kind of a shift to thinking that it's not even worth investing any resources in organizing in rural America, that we should just focus on squeezing as much turnout as we can from our core supporters in the most populous areas, as opposed to spending resources on going out and trying to appeal to folks who could go either way. And that has, in my opinion, that's been one of the biggest mistakes of the Democratic Party over the past decade, and has led to this huge polarization because we totally just ceded this ground, huge swath of America where we just have not been there, being in the conversation, trying to maintain relationships, and instead really extremist right-wing narratives have filled that space, and there's been nobody there to push back. And so what we did was push back a little bit and go out to doors that had never been knocked by a Democrat, or, you know, we could see in their voting history the last time that a Democratic campaign knocked on their door was 2008. Obama had an incredible grassroots campaign that was really the high watermark for electoral organizing in rural America.
So then let's just, even if you take the political side of things out, talk about the power of face-to-face conversations in whatever context you use it in. And again, using that curiosity approach rather than, we are just so used to telling people and thinking that, I mean, there's so much out there, as you mentioned, primarily in Democrats, but just in general, of where we feel like the way to convince, I mean, COVID is the perfect example of this. The way to convince people to do something is to throw facts at them, when actually that doesn't typically work. So talk about what you learned in terms of face-to-face conversations, and how the average person listening here can use that in their lives to not only maybe make change, but also just have a more enjoyable conversation with someone when it doesn't turn into this tense, well, I know this, well, I know that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I feel like a lot of people had reservations towards like showing up to Canvas because they were like, oh, I don't know if I can win a political argument. And it's like, it's not like, that is not what we're doing here. If you're going in with the mindset of you got to win an argument, you've lost that person from the get-go. Nobody wants to get beat in an argument. Like that's not how you reach people or change people. You change people and are changed through relationship, and being in there and having empathy and listening, and like you said, having genuine curiosity. And so that was our approach to canvassing. And I think especially in the digital age that we live in, the face-to-face is even more important. If we can show up and get out of our Twitter sphere, our Facebook sphere, where things are so deliberately polarized and kind of reward an echo chamber, reward going deeper into those divisions. When we get off of that and instead search for where we share values and where we see the humanity in each other, it can be really powerful. And I think it can be really surprising for people, because we build up the most uncharitable narratives about each other in our heads of like, the other side just being the worst. And in reality, obviously there's extremes, but most folks, you'll find that you agree on so much, and maybe you differ on policy, but you largely want a lot of the same things for yourself and your family and your community. And I think, especially in this time where things can feel really bleak, oftentimes that gives me a huge dose of hope to just realize that that there is a ton that we still share, and that we can connect in really powerful ways over that, and that people are really hungry for that.
Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. And I want to thank Tracksmith also for allowing me to host yet another shakeout run in New York the day before the race. It was once again a beautiful event. Really enjoyed it. I loved those of you that I got to meet that weekend. And I hope if you have the opportunity to come to a Tracksmith shakeout at some point, I hope I'm there too so I can see you. But I hope you go regardless of whether I'm there or not, because they are really, really fun and you will see so clearly why it is such a special event. I want to remind you that on October 24th, Tracksmith debuted the exclusive opportunity to pre-order the Elliott Runner. You can also see the Elliott Runner at their Boston store. And you can also visit tracksmith.com/Tina to go check out this Elliott Runner. So for those of you who don't know, Tracksmith is an independent running brand inspired by a deep love of the sport. For years, the brand has elevated running wear using the best in class materials in timeless silhouettes that perform at the highest level. Now they're doing the same with footwear. The Elliott Runner was developed to meet the rigorous demands of committed runners, providing the perfect balance of cushioning and responsiveness with classic Tracksmith style, of course. The inspiration for the Elliott Runner started with a feeling many runners experience, the delight in finding a natural surface while out on a run. Logging thousands of miles across New England, the Tracksmith team found those moments on pine needle trails, wood chip paths, and old indoor tracks. That's the sensation they wanted to bring to the roads. Soft, resilient, responsive, and ready for anything. Step into the Elliott Runner, a Pebax-powered trainer inspired by the pep of New England's natural surfaces. You can see the Elliott Runner, as I mentioned at the beginning, at their Boston store. You can also visit tracksmith.com/Tina to go find out more. I am so excited to wear my pair, which should be here any day now. And you can get yourself a pair. You will see why everyone is raving about them and so excited about them. Go to tracksmith.com/Tina.
So then relating to that, for someone listening who feels strong emotionally today, they also feel I'm not qualified, I don't have the credentials, I don't have the history to do something within my community, maybe run for something. It doesn't even have to be as big as House or Senate, but some kind of role within their local area. But I'd just love for you, having been Chloe's campaign manager, to share about, you had learned a lot from your work at Harvard on the campaigns to, divest away from fossil fuels at Harvard. But you and Chloe weren't exactly like trained in this to go for this. So what would you say to encourage someone who just has a feeling that no one else is going to do this, but they don't feel qualified and they feel scared of the people they would be coming up against in their area who are lifelong politicians?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think both Chloe and I had a ton of imposter syndrome starting out as, 24 and 25-year-old kids just jumping into some pretty deep political water. And just, not, like you said, not having much training or experience in that and just figuring it out as we went. I love to paraphrase Michelle Obama. She said something to the effect of like, I've been in those rooms. I've been in all of those rooms. The people there are not that smart. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, of like the folks who are doing politics. Sure, they have some experience, but they're just like us, and you can figure it out as you go. That's what we did. And if you just build a good team around you and you care about what you're doing, you can accomplish a lot. And it really takes good people stepping up to the plate and being willing to put themselves out there like that. Because if we don't run good people for office, then nothing's going to change.
Yeah, so true. I want to wrap up here with a question from our mutual friend Sanjay, who I asked about interviewing you, and Sanjay said, about how your brother Canyon and the rest of your family, you mentioned Autumn and River, and just your family in general is, lives in rural America, but very much a progressive family. How have your family influenced your activism, your interest in politics, your work? And how have you built off one another?
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I'm in love with my family. Our parents definitely instilled a really strong environmental ethic from the get-go. And I remember going to like School of the Americas protests with them at Fort Benning from a young age, getting involved with American imperialism in Latin America, and reading Howard Zinn, People's History of the United States, and kind of being a little bit immersed in a different way of looking at the United States in particular and our role in the world. So super grateful for that education growing up. And I absolutely adore my siblings. They have been so foundational to who I am as the little baby, getting to run around in their footsteps for my whole life. And I probably wouldn't be doing anything I am without their example to follow.
Okay, thank you. So final question, how did running help you during that during the stressful parts of your life? I mean, primarily in the campaign trail time. In Rural Runner, which I will put in the show notes, they show you going to the trails after Chloe won the seat in the House. Like, that's how important it was to you, that was what you wanted to do. So tell us about how that did help you, or has helped you in your life to process ups and downs.
Yeah, for me, and I'm sure for so many of us, running is just like the place where I connect most deeply to myself. I spend a lot of time behind a computer screen in the campaign world. And so being able to close the laptop, go out the door, and be in my body on the trail or on the dirt roads, and just have that space for the minds to flow free and to be in my body, feel endorphins. It is huge for keeping the cup full and staying healthy in body and mind and spirit.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to part with? Let's say if people are feeling very disheartened, very fearful for the future today, what would you like to remind people?
Yeah, I think, again, this is a long distance race, organizing and social change, and we have to stay in it for the long haul. I take a lot of hope out of like looking at the trail running community in particular, and what a culture we're beginning to build of activism and being engaged citizens. You look at the people that we have in the sport, some of the pillars like Claire Gallagher and her leadership on environmental activism in politics, or Stephanie Howe. There's so many examples. Or you look at, Zoe Rome at Trail Runner and what she's doing to influence the media landscape around systemic change, or brands like Patagonia, where Yvonne Chouinard just gave away the whole country to organize for climate action, or institutions like Protect Our Winters and the Green Racing Project that are supporting athlete advocacy. It's super inspiring to see. There's so many ways to connect into that culture. And I think there's just so much room for us to go so much deeper and to do it together with support from one another. And I'm excited for the path ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and all that you've done. Thank you for sharing your stories. As I said, I will put the movie in the show notes. Where else can people go find you?
dirtroadorganizing.org is the name of Chloe, my new nonprofit. The film is there. You can organize a community screening if you want. Chloe and I can show up and have a discussion with you about activism in your community. Or I'm on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't really know how it works.
I don't know if Twitter now's the time we want to be pushing people over to Twitter. So let's just leave it at Instagram. Not that that's much better anyway, but Canyon, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate all that you've done and look forward to following where the future goes for you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Likewise.
The Running for Real podcast and everything we do here at Running for Real would not be possible if it wasn't for the Running for Real team. While I am the person who you hear from most often and maybe the face of the brand, the rest of our team are such critical pieces of what we do. And without them, I think I'd just be running around in circles with ideas. So I want to take a moment to thank our team. To Jeremy Nessel, who's been with me since the very beginning. Kat McKay, Sally Pontarelli, Kelsey Wang, Sandy Gutierrez, Louise Murphy, Andrew Basola, Alexandria Will, and Maria Vargas. Thank you to each and every one of you for all that you give to Running for Real and our community. I appreciate you, and I'm so thankful for having you as a part of the team. Pretty inspiring stuff, huh? I hope that gives you a little bit of a different thought going into the rest of the week as you prepare for, as we, I guess, start to prepare for what our world is going to look like in the future. I am thankful to Canyon for sharing their journey with us and what it meant for hope. In moments we can be feeling really lost, like we're not sure how we're going to manage this, but I think this is a good thing for us to learn from and also hear how running is a part of it. I also loved, of course, hearing about the Green Racing Project, so we'll be following them in the future. And I'll put a link to the show note in the show notes to go watch Rural Runners. It really was a fantastic movie, very well done. Highly encourage you to go check that out. So I will put a link to that in the show notes. Thank you again to our sponsors for today. Make sure you can go check those out. And that is going to athleticgreens.com/Tina. This is the time to go get yourself that free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2. And I will say, if you go sign up for Athletic Greens now, there will be something special coming for you in 2023 for purely 100% for my audience, no one else's audiences. This is a very special deal. I'm not going to say any more just yet. I may drop another hint at some point. I also want to encourage you to go check out the Elliott Runner at Tracksmith. I am eagerly awaiting my pair. Should be here any day now. You can go check out that Elliott Runner at tracksmith.com/Tina. Thank you so much for listening. And the show notes are at runningforreal.com/episode 324. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.